Right now, I'm seething with anger, so much so that I'm trembling. If Francis, my spouse, were to walk in, I'd rather not disclose my state. Just finished up a project here in Dallas, and I couldn't be more relieved to be away from the chaos at home. I've had this nagging feeling that Francis has been involved with someone else, and tonight my suspicions were confirmed. It doesn't matter how long it's been happening. Our marriage feels like it's on life support. It's ironic how these things blindside you, even after 9 years together. Initially, I entertained the thought of confronting them. But what's the use? It's evident. My marriage is done, and the guy she's with would probably outmatch me easily. So here I am, feeling utterly alone. Only those who've walked this path can truly comprehend this agony. I'm not interested in the cliches. I don't need comforting words like, "I understand what you're going through," or offers to talk it out. I'm keeping this to myself for now. I need to strategize my next moves, but first, I need to clear my mind, and that won't happen overnight. The idea of being intimate with my wife again makes me sick, especially with visions of her with him. Thankfully, that disrespect hasn't extended to our marital bed. They've chosen hotels now, with a notepad at the ready. I'm grappling with what to do next. If Frances were the stereotypical bombshell, maybe I could have seen this coming or been more vigilant for signs, but she's not. She's not the long-haired, towering beauty type. Frances is around 55, with short brown hair and a fit body, not the kind to turn heads. Certainly a dramatic flair, but not lacking in allure. Compared to Francis, his wife, my wife would barely rate a 5. So the question remains, why would he be interested in her? Probably just because he can. Francis joined Parker Industries about 2 years ago, shortly after our son Daniel was born. We were getting by comfortably on my salary, but she yearned for the lifestyle our friends enjoyed. "Steve, if I work, it'll alleviate some financial stress for you, and you won't need to work so much overtime. It'd be wonderful to have you around more," she argued. Her parents even offered to babysit Daniel so she could work at least part-time. She had a valid point, though I still believed Daniel needed her at home a while longer. Little did I know she was already on the job hunt. It was at a charity auction where we, or rather I should say, encountered Christopher Parker. My boss passed his tickets to us, admitting his disdain for such events, and I saw it as an opportunity for a pleasant evening out with my wife. When he entered the room with his wife, all eyes were on them. He was tall, attractive, and wealthy, granting him a sort of celebrity status. He exuded charm, and it seemed like every woman admired him, including my wife. "That's Christopher Parker and his wife Alice," my wife whispered to me. "He owns 3 companies around here, and his wife was a fashion model. The dress she's wearing tonight probably costs more than my entire wardrobe," she observed quietly. "But they're likely not as happy as we are," I responded, giving my wife a kiss on the cheek. "Yeah, wouldn't it be nice to have that kind of money, even just for a while?" she pondered later that evening. Somehow, we ended up chatting with him. I can't recall how the conversation veered towards our jobs or Francis' interest in returning to work, but it stuck in my mind until Francis brought it up again weeks later. Christopher really flaunted his wealth that night by winning the auctions for the top 7 items. When I called him out for showing off, my wife quickly corrected me, claiming he was doing it all for charity. I wasn't convinced. It was obvious he wanted everyone to see he could do as he pleased. It was clear he relished being the center of attention. I couldn't help but notice his wife seemed to be watching him closely, also keeping an eye on all the attractive women present. It seemed like she didn't fully trust him. Nevertheless, 2 weeks later, I came home to find out Francis had landed a part-time job at none other than Parker Industries, in a newly established department. She was thrilled, saying it was likely to become a full-time role in 5 months. "Isn't it wonderful?" she said, clearly excited. I really wanted to say no, but I didn't want to dampen her enthusiasm. So I put on a brave face, smiled, and told her I was proud. "How did you find out about the job?" I asked. "My friend Mackenzie works there, and Christopher asked her if she knew anyone job hunting. She mentioned me, and I sent in my resume. I didn't want to tell you until it was official." I had my interview last week and got the job offer the next day. Isn't that great? She repeated, bubbling with excitement. So you'll be working directly with Christopher then? I asked. Yes, we're launching a new department focused on managing the charitable activities of his businesses, she explained. It might not seem like much, but I'll be evaluating all the charity requests they receive and helping decide which ones they'll support. It's a big responsibility. I'm sure you're up for it, love, I reassured her. How about we go out for dinner to celebrate? I suggested, acknowledging our tight budget but remaining optimistic about our financial future. And so it began the constant talk about Mr. Parker or Christopher and his greatness, which almost made me sick. Occasionally, she mentioned needing to accompany him on day trips to assess different companies or sites, but they never stayed out overnight, considering our son Daniel. Steve, I need to be away next Tuesday night, she mentioned during dinner another week. Christopher is considering a donation for a new wing at a small hospital in Houston. We'll visit the hospital and then dine with their board. I'll be back by Wednesday to get Daniel from my mother's. Why not fly back right after dinner? I assume you were using his private jet, I inquired. Mr. Parker prefers not to rush the visit, she responded, assuring me it was just for one night with a reassuring smile. I wasn't entirely comfortable with the situation, but I trusted my wife. It seemed unlikely Christopher would make a move on Frances, given his own situation at home. I wished her a fun trip, telling her I'd see her on Wednesday. I half-jokingly mentioned needing extra affection on Monday to make up for her absence on Tuesday. As usual, she ensured Monday was memorable, and upon her return on Wednesday, she made sure I was content. I believed our relationship and intimate life were both strong, or at least that's what I thought at the time as life progressed. We enjoyed a bit more financial freedom, though Frances' out-of-town trips became more frequent as the holidays approached. I realized I hadn't mentioned my job, which turns out to be quite relevant to the unfolding events. I work for a firm specializing in testing security systems and computer firewalls, making us the experts in assessing vulnerability to hackers. With my background in accounting and computers, I'm part of the team that focuses on banking clients. Our work often involves board members requesting us to attempt breaches or disruptions within their own systems to test their security. We delve into their computer systems, targeting specific accounts to simulate white-collar crimes. Around 67% of the time, we manage to breach their defenses, often leading to the banks hiring us to resolve the vulnerabilities we exploit. The highlight of my career occurred about 3 months ago when I used a fabricated Dominican passport to open an account at a Bank of America branch. The bank president personally gave me a tour, boasting about the security measures in place. As I hinted at a substantial $1.7 million deposit, he assured me with overwhelming confidence about the bank's impregnable security, presenting it as a fortress against any breaches. This assurance was akin to waving a red flag in front of a bull. Challenges like this fuel my ambition. I gathered all necessary information for fund transfers, setting the stage for the upcoming action. My partner Kenny and I, acting like digital ninjas, penetrated their system and shuffled the financial deck. Within just 2 days, we siphoned funds from 4 unsuspecting accounts, putting them into the one I had established under a fictitious company name. After the deed was done, I briefed the bank's contact, who had commissioned the test, detailing the ins and outs of our digital heist with the precision of a master storyteller outlining the twists of a plot. This exploit wasn't just a job well done. It was a testament to our skill and a stark reminder of the digital vulnerabilities that even the most fortified institutions face. Unsurprisingly, they were very impressed with our work and immediately hired us to fix the security issues. The bank's president wasn't thrilled about the situation, but he managed to keep his job. That's my job, and I excel at it. Over the past 5 years, I've assumed about 7 different identities, complete with all the necessary documents that look indistinguishable from the real thing. To most people, these fake documents would prove very useful. Just before Christmas, with a shopping list in hand and a nice bonus in my pocket, I decided to splurge a bit on gifts. I purchased a new iPod for my wife and, on a whim, stopped by Victoria's Secret to pick out something special, claiming it was for her, but also a treat for myself. With the assistance of the staff, I selected a couple of risque outfits and, laden with gifts, made my way home since Francis was at work. I managed to wrap most of the presents and hid them around the house. Francis had returned home early that morning from a trip with Christopher and hadn't even unpacked her suitcase. Yet, I decided to help out by putting away her things. As I emptied the suitcase onto the bed and began sorting, I came across a piece of lingerie that caught my attention. It was a bright red lace-trimmed crotchless panty set that I definitely would have remembered if I'd seen it before. The most disturbing part was finding the panties in a used condition, clearly indicating they had been worn recently. Other than that, there wasn't anything else suspicious in her suitcase, so I repacked everything and zipped it up. This lingerie find was my undeniable proof. I had a strong sense of who was involved, but the reason behind her actions baffled me. Our life together was more than satisfactory, yet it seemed Francis desired more. That was the beginning of the end for us. If I hadn't chosen to be helpful, or if Francis had attended to her belongings herself, she might have continued deceiving me, leaving me none the wiser that evening. She was in the mood for intimacy, but I couldn't bring myself to respond to her advances. I simply informed her that I was too preoccupied to be interested. However, I understood that I needed more concrete evidence than just a revealing piece of lingerie to take action against Mr. Parker. Given my line of work, I reached out to a colleague who had previously assisted our firm. I explained that I would be away for a project and wanted him to keep an eye on Francis, aiming to track her movements and any company she kept. I just need to know where she's going and who she's with, I stressed. Man, Steve, that's tough to hear, but don't stress. I'll uncover anything if it's there, he assured me. Together, we equipped the house, her vehicle, and even her purse with listening devices for surveillance. Francis, I'll only be away for a couple of nights at most. I want to wrap up this project before Christmas, so we can spend the entire holiday together. I explained to her, plus, you'll have a chance to pick out my Christmas gift while I'm gone. Make sure it's something special, considering all the time you've spent away this year, I added, trying to provoke a reaction. She simply stared back without a word. On Wednesday, I caught my flight to Dallas and signaled Robert to start his surveillance. Kenny had already arrived, and we managed to complete our tasks by 6:45 p.m. Let's go out for a beer or two and grab some dinner, Steve, Robert suggested. There's an excellent seafood place just a couple of blocks from our hotel, and the waitresses are a sight for sore eyes. I'll be ready in 25 minutes. Just pick me up out front, I told him. I rang Francis to let her know I was heading out for dinner and planned to turn in early, hoping to catch her before she got busy. What's on your agenda tonight? I inquired. I'm just looking forward to a hot bath after putting Daniel to bed. Then I'll probably read a bit, she responded. Love you, she said before hanging up, but I didn't reciprocate. Her actions had extinguished that sentiment. Dinner turned out to be enjoyable, and the waitresses were indeed attractive. After a final drink in the hotel bar, I retired to my room, noticing a voicemail waiting for me. It was a brief message urging me to call back. Steve, your cell was off, Robert started. As soon as I called, I intentionally turned it off, wanting to enjoy one last good meal undisturbed before getting your update. So, what happened? I pressed. He informed me Francis had arranged for a babysitter, and with Christopher Parker, post-dinner, they headed to room 217 at the Bishop Inn. Although he couldn't secure photos from inside, he captured images of them entering and promised to snap more as they exited. He also mentioned capturing some audio, but doubted I'd want to hear it. He booked the room just for a night, so I'll watch from your place tomorrow. No worries, Steve. You won't have to pay for this, he assured me. I muttered to myself, she's going to regret ever getting involved with him. As I sat in my room, plotting my next steps. Divorcing Francis seemed too straightforward. I aimed to affect her deeply, crafting a memorable Christmas for all the wrong reasons. By Thursday, I had outlined my plan, actionable mainly on the 23rd due to holiday closures. Armed with a fake passport and my son's birth certificate, I booked flights under an alias, choosing a complex route to obscure our destination. Holiday travel is chaotic, making it easy to blend in as everyone rushes to finalize their plans. I took out a cash advance on my credit card to avoid leaving a digital footprint. I had also liquidated our CDs and emptied our safety deposit box, gathering all the cash we had. Since I planned to travel light with just a couple of outfits, I'd need the cash to buy clothes once we arrived at our destination. The last part of my plan took 3 days. Parker Industries did business with 2 local banks, including one where I held an account. My goal was to infiltrate the bank's mainframe, access Parker's account, and route those funds to our shared savings account. Sounds easy, right? Not quite, and I had to enlist Kenny's expertise. I wanted to minimize involving others to avoid implicating anyone else if I encountered any issues. Kenny was my go-to for solutions. I decided on a practice run before taking any real action. Although we had experience with such operations, each bank system presented unique challenges without a uniform approach. The initial attempt was thwarted by the bank's firewall, stopping me in my tracks. However, the next day, with Kenny's advice, I breached the system and spent a couple of hours navigating through the accounts to gather the necessary information. I aimed to initiate the first transfer from Parker's account to mine late on Friday, December 24th, then immediately moved the money to one of 8 international accounts. Timing was crucial during that last week. I kept things quiet. I gathered all the details from Robert and prepared copies for Frances, her parents, Christopher's wife, Alice, and my own parents, ensuring all but my parents received their copies. On Christmas Eve, Daniel and I decorated the tree and arranged the gifts underneath. Since discovering Frances' affair with her obnoxious boss, I had been distant. By this point, she might have guessed I was aware of her affair, or at least sensed something was amiss. I had a small bag packed with clothes and a copy of Robert's report in my car's trunk, ready for December 24th. "Steve, you've been distant all week. Are you all right? Is there something you need to discuss?" Frances inquired. It was time for the crucial moment. "Yes, Frances, there's something we need to talk about, but I'd rather not spoil Christmas for Daniel." After the holidays, I proposed. "Well, we could still have a bit of fun tonight." "It's been quite a while," she suggested, starting to unbutton her shirt. That's when I decided to confront the situation directly. "Is Christopher too busy to see you tonight?" I retorted, then headed upstairs to the guest room. Once inside, I closed and locked the door behind me. I could barely hear her knocking and pleading from the other side. "Steve, we really need to talk. Can you open the door, please?" But facing a horde of bikers seemed more appealing at that moment as I lay in bed attempting to fall asleep. Eventually, I did manage to get some sleep, waking up just after 6:40 the next morning. I got out of bed, showered, shaved, and prepared myself for what I anticipated would be an extremely hectic day. I knew I'd need plenty of coffee to get through the upcoming 24 hours. By 9:30, Daniel was already engrossed in cartoons, and Frances was making her way to the kitchen. Her eyes were swollen from lack of sleep, signaling she had a rough night. My concern for her had vanished. My only goal was to get through to 2 p.m., when I would start executing my plan. "When did you find out?" she eventually questioned. "Does it even matter now, Frances?" I responded. "Is there anything I can say?" she continued. "Or could you say that it meant nothing? You don't love him, only me, and it was all a big mistake." "Sure, you could say that and maybe more, but it wouldn't change how I feel now. I'm taking Daniel to my parents' place this afternoon, and I don't want you there. You're no longer part of this family." I hope he was worth it, Frances, because from my perspective, he wasn't. I coldly stated as I prepared to leave with Daniel. After loading the car with presents and dressing Daniel, I instructed him to say goodbye to his mother. She was oblivious to what was about to unfold. I had no intention of tipping her off. "When will you return?" she inquired. "We'll be back when we're back," I answered vaguely. "Do you have plans to go out?" she asked, still unsure of what lay ahead as I closed the door behind me. "She's crying. "Where's Francis?" my mom asked as we entered. "Do you want the short version or the full story?" I responded, while my dad took Daniel to the Christmas tree. "She's not here because she's been having an affair with her boss for some time," I explained after the initial shock passed. I informed them that Daniel and I were leaving to start fresh elsewhere and would be in touch once we were settled. "Mom, it's better if you don't ask too many questions," I suggested. "I plan to make those responsible pay dearly for their actions, aiming where it'll hurt the most. Let's enjoy this afternoon as a family, since it might be a while before we see each other again." At 5 in the afternoon, I initiated the transfer, moving all the funds from Parker's account into Francis's and my shared savings account temporarily. By 6:45, Daniel and I boarded the first of 3 flights out of the country. Francis must have tried calling my cell countless times before realizing I wasn't going to pick up. I had already turned off my phone and tossed it into a dumpster a couple of blocks away from my parents' home. Just before we caught our next flight, I moved the funds from our savings into the initial overseas account. From there, the money was set to distribute among 8 other accounts by the early hours of Christmas morning. I planned to bring joy to many kids on Christmas with this gesture. Glancing at my watch, I could only envision the astonishment on people's faces as my planned surprises were unveiled on Christmas Eve. According to what Robert found, Alice ended up kicking her husband so forcefully over the revelations that he needed medical intervention. Francis' parents were equally dismayed by their daughter's present situation and didn't hesitate to express their disappointment in her choices. By the time Francis realized we weren't returning, she had received the package containing photos, recordings, and a letter from me detailing how I discovered her betrayal and stating my inability to forgive her. "You don't deserve mine or Daniel's love, so you're not going to have it from this day forth. The house and everything else in it is yours to do with as you wish. Daniel and I will be starting a new life without you. I only hope that one day I'll find it in me to forgive you. But I don't see that day coming for a long time," I told her. "By the way, since the 2 of you started your unholy union under the pretext of donating money to good causes, I've decided to help you out. The $1.7 million from your Bank of America account has been given away under the name of Parker Industries to 8 children's hospitals and countries in need. I've arranged for these organizations to express their gratitude to Parker Industries exactly 1 year from now. Feel free to inform Christopher. I hope he enjoys the repercussions of your affair, as it's turned out to be his costliest mistake. Wishing you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I'd like to say we'll run into each other, but that's not likely to happen anytime soon. I'll keep Mom informed, so if you're in her good graces, perhaps she'll share updates with you. And if you decide to file for divorce, go ahead, I won't oppose it." We arrived in Dominicana on Christmas morning, where I had arranged to rent a 2-bedroom condo near the capital's downtown area. I managed to keep some of Parker Industries' money for our expenses. Although living here is affordable, I knew I'd eventually need to find work. Daniel wondered about his mom initially, but stopped after a few weeks. I hired an affordable, reliable nanny, and we started to feel like a family with limited resources. I launched a software security business, avoiding big banks but gradually gaining recognition among smaller independent clients who began seeking me out. 4 years since moving, someone knocked on my door one day when I heard about a newcomer in the business here. Can I come in?" he joked with a laugh. We caught up for over 3 hours before heading to dinner. It turns out Parker Industries wasn't thrilled about the unexpected charitable contributions and ended up replacing Christopher as president. He nearly went bankrupt, refilling the $1.7 million, and after divorcing his wife, Alice, Frances lost her job. Once it was discovered, the funds went through her account. Although there was an attempt to charge her, she was ultimately found not guilty. As soon as I caught wind of the situation, I suspected your handiwork. My hunch was confirmed when our company started losing business to a new player in town. Believe it or not, I've brought down an offer from the Home Office to either buy you out. He came to offer me the position of leading the new Southern Division as I reviewed the contract he presented. The salary outlined was in line with US standards, meaning that with the cost of living here, I could enjoy a luxurious lifestyle while engaging in the work I excel at. but with significantly less stress and oversight required on my part. He urged me to consider the proposal, mentioning he wouldn't be returning to the US until the week's end, giving me ample time to ponder the decision. During his stay, we indulged in the local cuisine and culture, and he seemed particularly enamored with a vibrant Latin American lifestyle, finding a particular interest in a local woman. When he left, he was noticeably pleased, taking with him a signed contract and a letter intended for Francis, which also included photos. In the letter to Francis, I detailed how our son has been thriving in his new environment. I explained that he's attending a small, reputable private school, where he has become fluent in Spanish, likely surpassing his proficiency in English. This linguistic shift is significant, considering the global importance of Spanish as a language, offering him invaluable communication skills that will serve him in countless ways as he grows. Furthermore, he started learning Chinese, a strategic choice, given that approximately a quarter of his schoolmates are of Asian descent. His adeptness with computers is unmatched, suggesting that he's on a path to potentially succeed me in my business endeavors. He's aware that we're no longer together, but I haven't explained the reasons to him. He's simply adjusted to the reality that he's with me and you're elsewhere. Due to obvious reasons, I couldn't disclose my destination to anyone, and after I departed, I understand that your parents moved in with you, while mine did the same with me. My mom told me she relayed all the updates I sent your way once she moved past her initial anger. So you're up to date on how Daniel's doing for what it's worth. I've let go of my resentment towards you. My current partner pointed out that I was holding on to too much from the past, and it was time for me to let go and move forward. It's unfortunate how things turned out. You would have really enjoyed life here. I have no plans to return, especially since my parents are considering buying a place here to spend the winters, leaving me with no ties back home. So if you ever wish to see Daniel, you'll need to travel here at least for the foreseeable future. Mom never mentions you. I don't ask about you, but I do hope you've managed to recover after losing your job. However, learning about Christopher's downfall did bring a bit of satisfaction. That's pretty much everything I have to share. I hope you find someone you can stay true to and start anew. As for me, I've met someone incredible. She's embraced Daniel as if he were her own and brought happiness back into my life, similar to the joy we once shared. We're planning to get married soon, especially since Daniel will be welcoming a new sister come spring. I'm ready to commit once more. You're welcome to write to Daniel, but this will be my last letter to you. Frances struggled to get through my letter due to her tears. After everything that happened, she never crossed paths with Christopher again. Finding a new job was challenging for her, given the fallout and negative media attention. The only men interested in her now were either not her type or just seeking a casual relationship. She's currently seeing a salesman from another town, but they're proceeding cautiously. From the photos, she can tell Daniel is doing well and looks joyful, and she wishes she could visit him. But finances have been tight lately. She lost her home after failing to keep up with the mortgage payments when the real estate market crashed. She repeatedly blames herself for succumbing to Christopher's superficial charm, thinking she would still have her old life if not for that mistake. However, she recognizes those thoughts of what could have been are all that remain for her now. Friends, what do you think about this story? Write in the comments.